In the 1940s, the Germans were working on producing an atomic bomb. Leo Szilard was a part of that. Szilard fled the Nazis, then made his way to New York, where he worked at Columbia University. He then developed a theory that uranium might be used to produce the atomic bomb. Leo Szilard thought that uranium could be used. Einstein and Szilard wrote a letter to President Roosevelt and urged him to start the Manhattan Project to counteract possible German nuclear weapons. In 1905, Einstein said that a large amount of energy could be released from a small piece of matter. This was expressed by the equation E equals mc squared. The atomic bomb would demonstrate this idea. Einstein considered himself to be a pacifist. In 1929, he said that he would not help the war effort. Other findings in the 1940s showed the bomb was a possibility and made it top priority for the United States. They also confirmed that plutonium could be used in the bomb and decided to start the Manhattan Project. Albert Einstein and other scientists worked to find out more about atomic bombs. Einstein's research leads him to the conclusion E equals mc squared, all the while Leo Szilard wondering if uranium could produce this phenomenon. Einstein receives word that the Germans were researching nuclear weapons. He then influenced the start of the Manhattan Project. In collaboration with Szilard, Einstein wrote a letter to the President of the United States warning of possible German nuclear weapons research and suggesting that the United States begin its own research into atomic energy. Over the next several years, the program scientists worked on producing the key materials for nuclear fission like uranium-235 and plutonium. They sent them to Los Alamos, New Mexico, where a team led by J. Robert Oppenheimer worked to turn these materials into workable atomic bomb. Early on the morning of July 16, 1945, the Manhattan Project held its first successful test of an atomic device at the Trinity Test Site in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber dropped the world's first atomic bomb over the city of Hiroshima. The explosion wiped out 90% of the city and immediately killed 80,000 people, with tens of thousands of people dying years later due to radiation. 3 days later, a second B-29 bomber dropped another atomic bomb on Nagasaki, killing about 40,000 people. Japan's Emperor Hirohito announced the surrender of Japan.
As Einstein once said, "I made one great mistake in my life when I signed the letter to President Roosevelt recommending that atom bombs be made, but there was some justification, the danger that the Germans would make them." Albert Einstein advocating against the use of nuclear weapons was a turning point in America's history of war. In 1945, Einstein and Linus Pauling founded the Emergency Committee of Atomic Scientists in Princeton, New Jersey, which other scientists joined in hopes of abolishing all future use of nuclear weapons. After Einstein and Pauling gave speeches for years to educate the public about the dangers of the atomic bomb, in the hope that they would band together and no nuclear weapons. This was successful, as there have been no more atomic bombs dropped by the United States of America to this day. No one would suggest that the nuclear test ban itself is the work of Linus Pauling. But does anyone believe that this treaty would have been reached by now? If there has been no responsible scientist who tirelessly, year in, year out, has impressed on the authorities and the general public this real menace of nuclear tests?
Linus Pauling said, "I believe that there is a greater power in the world than the evil power of military force, of nuclear bombs. There is a power of good, of morality, of humanitarianism."
Einstein begins peace movements and the public follows. They protest against nuclear warfare because of its effect on people. Also, destruction of humankind was a real possibility.
Were connected with the construction or the use of the atomic bomb. For these physicists find themselves in a position not unlike to that of Alfred Nobel himself. Alfred Nobel invented the most powerful explosive ever known up to his time, a means of destruction par excellence.
He also said the problem of atomic war would not be confused by minor problems such as communism versus capitalism. An atomic war would kill everyone, left, right, or center.
The arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union initiated originally as a preventive measure, but it turned into much more than that. On both sides, weapons of mass destruction were being built as fast as possible with no thought of holding back. If people continued development of these types of bombs, the radioactive poisoning would be enough to wipe out all life on Earth. Pauling once said, "So far as my scientific career goes, of course, there was the decision that I made in 1945, 46 perhaps, but starting in 45, and that may have been made by my wife rather than me, to sacrifice part of my scientific career to work for control of nuclear weapons and for the achievement of world peace."
Einstein begins peace movements and the public follows soon after. They protest against nuclear warfare because of its effect on people involved in it, mentally and physically. Also, the destruction of humankind was a real possibility.
A lot of people liked the show, but one person didn't. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, who had been keeping a file on Einstein. When Einstein first started spending time at Caltech, a group called the Women Patriot Corporation made a document accusing Einstein of being a communist who should not be allowed on U.S. land. They accused him of being associated with more communist parties than Joseph Stalin. The document ended up in Hoover's files, but it was the appearance with Mrs. Roosevelt that moved Einstein to the top of Hoover's list. Hoover hated Einstein so much that he started a campaign to ruin his reputation and deport him. Einstein declared, "I've always condemned the use of the atomic bomb against Japan, but I could not do anything at all to prevent that fateful decision."
Einstein said, "The time has come now when man must give up war. It is no longer rational to solve international problems by resorting to war. Now that the atomic bombs, such as the bombs exploded at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, can destroy a city, kill all the people in a city, a small city the size of Minneapolis, say, we can see that we must now make use of man's powers of reason in order to settle disputes between nations." Einstein believed the idea of achieving security through national armament is, at the present state of military technique, a disastrous illusion. On the part of the USA, this illusion has been particularly fostered by the fact that this country succeeded in producing the atomic bomb. The belief seemed to prevail that in the end it would be possible to achieve decisive military superiority. In this way, any potential opponent would be intimidated, and security, so ardently desired by all of us, brought to us by, and all of humanity, the maxim which we have been following during these last 5 years, has been, in short, security through superior military power, whatever the cost. In 2009, David Krieger announced, "As the director of the theoretical division at Los Alamos, I participated in the most senior level in the World War II Manhattan Project that produced the first atomic weapons. Now at age 88, I am one of the few remaining such senior persons alive. Looking back at the half-century since that time, I feel the most intense relief that these weapons have not been used since World War II, mixed with the horror that tens of thousands of such weapons have been built since that time, 100 times more than any of us at Los Alamos could have ever imagined." Einstein has greatly affected the warfare we use today. Not a single atomic bomb has been dropped since he protested in 1945 to his death. We owe our thanks to Albert Einstein and everyone who supported him.